Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating historical and philosophical dilemma. We're going to look at how a single, famous, logical tool can slice a deeply complex historical mystery into two completely opposite, yet fiercely defended conclusions. We'll be looking really closely at the source material to see how the exact same data can literally create entirely different realities.
So you kind of have to wonder, all right, how on earth is it possible that identical historical clues can lead entirely rational, intelligent minds to drastically different verdicts? Keep in mind, we aren't talking about different sets of data here. We're talking about the exact same historical footprint. It's like this giant dialectic detective story. And the crazy thing is, to solve it, both sides wield the exact same philosophical weapon.
And that weapon? Well, you've probably heard of it. It's Occam's razor. What's really interesting here is the actual definition of the razor itself. Academically, it's the principle of logical parsimony, which simply states that entities should not be multiplied beyond necessity. But in everyday language, it basically just means that the best explanation for any problem is usually the one that requires the fewest unproven assumptions. You want the most logically economical answer. So keep that in the back of your mind, because this razor is about to do some serious heavy lifting.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the apologetic minimal facts.
To kick off our investigation fairly, we absolutely have to agree on the clues. In modern Christian apologetics, this foundation is called the minimal facts approach. Let's look at these concrete historical points. And this is crucial, by the way. These are points that even the majority of secular scientists and historians agree actually happened. First, Jesus died by crucifixion. Second, following his death, his followers were entirely broken and lost all hope. Third, very shortly after that, these exact same followers unyieldingly claimed they saw him alive, and they were willing to be tortured and die for this belief. And fourth, prominent skeptics, like Jesus' brother James and Paul of Tarsus, who literally actively persecuted early Christians, suddenly converted after experiencing what they genuinely believed were encounters with the resurrected Christ.
Moving on to Section 2, Perspective 1, the believer.
Let's steelman this first perspective, okay? Let's see exactly how a believer takes Occam's razor and uses it to cleanly slice right through this historical puzzle. The absolute crux of it is this. From the perspective of a believer, the resurrection is actually the simplest, most elegant explanation. It's the perfect, seamless cut of Occam's razor. Think about it. If the resurrection happened, it effortlessly connects all four of those minimal facts together without having to stretch human psychology or invent elaborate historical fiction. It just fits.
And you can really see why the believer feels so confident here when you look at the alternatives. I mean, to explain away the resurrection using purely natural means, you kind of have to do some mental gymnastics. You have to assume that 500 people simultaneously shared the exact same mass hallucination, or you have to go with the swoon theory, which suggests a man who was brutally tortured and crucified merely fainted, woke up in a freezing tomb, and then somehow rolled a massive stone away all by himself. Or there's the stolen body theory, where you have to believe the disciples stole the body and then willingly let themselves be tortured to death to protect a conscious lie.
As our source text notes, to the believer, these alternative secular theories just seem, well, logically much more clunky. They require this huge dose of psychological conspiracies. So the believer's razor brilliantly trims away these absurd, highly improbable human conspiracies to leave behind the miraculous but perfectly fitting puzzle piece.
But wait, let's abruptly flip the script. Section 3, Perspective 2, the secularist. Why do secular historians and scientists apply that exact same razor to the exact same facts and cut in the complete opposite direction? The entire debate hinges on this one pivotal comparison. What are your foundational assumptions? Are you building on theism or are you building on naturalism? Remember, Occam's razor tells us to use the fewest unproven assumptions, but what actually counts as an unproven assumption depends entirely on your foundational worldview.
For the secularist, the simplest explanation absolutely must match the known world, the reality we can observe and measure every day. And from psychology, sociology, and history, we already have established natural phenomena that explain these events. Grief hallucinations? They're a very common, documented phenomena among the bereaved. We also know for a fact that cognitive dissonance heavily forces cults to fanatically rationalize the failures of their leaders. And we definitely know that legends and myths grow exceptionally fast in oral traditions. So, to the secularist, combining these known human behaviors is incredibly simple compared to the alternative.
Because let's face the physical reality here. Reversing cell necrosis and a body that has been dead for 3 days suddenly coming back to life and walking through walls, that completely violates literally all known physical and biological laws of the universe.
Therefore, for the secular historian, Occam's razor violently chops away the supernatural. As the source text explains, Occam's razor immediately cuts off the resurrection because, to a naturalist, it requires the most complex actually strike that it's the least believable assumption of all, the existence of an omnipotent God who purposely interferes with the laws of physics. Assuming human minds made a mistake or elaborated a story is vastly more scientifically probable than breaking the laws of biology.
Which brings us to Section 4, Worldviews. Who holds the razor?
This right here is the ultimate synthesis of our explainer today. We've seen the logic on both sides, but the ultimate realization is that the logical tool is only as objective as the hand that holds it. Look at how perfectly this balances out on the screen. If you start with the foundational assumption that God exists and therefore miracles are possible, the logic holds up perfectly. The resurrection becomes this brilliant logical solution that easily sweeps away clunky human conspiracies. But if you start with a purely scientific, naturalistic worldview, it fails completely. The resurrection becomes an impossible leap requiring an unimaginable assumption, while human psychological error becomes the obvious simple answer. The Occam's razor works flawlessly for both, depending entirely on where they started.
Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought to take away. We all like to think we're purely objective, right? Entirely rational beings just using logic to parse out the truth. But before you pick up the razor to solve any puzzle in life, you really have to ask yourself, what foundational assumptions are you already bringing to the table? Because as we've seen today, the assumptions you bring don't just influence your logic, they literally shape the reality of the conclusions you draw. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this helps you look at your own logic in a brand new light.